it's just the way the media handled the pandemic, not just in India. I mean, it's just there was this power outage thingy. Then I remember something to do with the PPEs were there. Oh, look at this. The PPE kits are not available. Everything is
Yeah.
not there. This is not there. That is not there. And then I remember when it came to the vaccines, right? First, the vaccines are not good. Then the
Yeah.
vaccines were out.
Yeah.
Apparently, then why aren't the vaccines being given? Okay,
Yeah.
then the vaccines were given to the elderly. Why are they only being given to the elderly? Why not to the young people? Then, oh, the young people are given. Why are children not getting the vaccine? It was as
Yeah,
if
and why are you not letting us buy them? Let us buy them directly. Like, stop negotiating on our behalf. That's what some of the states also said at that point.
oh yeah, and oh yeah, the newfound love for Pfizer, that was hilarious, by the way. So yeah,
Yeah.
let's talk about that. So
Yeah. Yeah, let's
yeah,
get into
what
it.
is this? What's with
Yeah, so
Pfizer
uh,
and Indian media?
uh, it's an obsession, Kushal. Really, I mean, I don't have any other word for it, but it is an obsession. Now, let me tell you what Pfizer was offering us. Pfizer said we will give you 5 crore vaccine doses in 2021. Only 5 crore. And they will not give us a time frame in which those vaccines will, if they could go over that 2021 timeline, and in the clause in the contract there's nothing we can do about it. We cannot stop payment to them. We have to accept those doses whenever they decide to give it to us. That's one. Number two, like I told you, 5 crore vaccine doses. Number three, against those 5 crore vaccine doses, they wanted sovereign immunity waiver. What does that mean? They wanted us to mortgage some of our sovereign properties out, which are out of our country. It could be anything. It could be our planes, it could be our computers at an embassy in DC. It could be anything. It could be our, buildings that India owns elsewhere, and they could just walk in and say that, okay, we're going to take this, and any country, not just India, for any country, this is a security problem. Okay. Now, what else did they want? Um, that they did with several countries, that, if there are any effective treatments, if you found a cure for COVID, you either don't use it, you still take their vaccines, you still pay them in full, and they were asking for about $15 to $20. So all those crores and crores of money would have to go abroad for us to get those 5 crore vaccines. And do you remember we vaccinated about 2 crore people one of these days? When
Hmm.
in the middle of our vaccine drive. So our
Yes.
capability to vaccinate was, administering 2.5 crore vaccine doses per day. What were we going to do with 5 crore vaccine doses? Like, why would we let an international company, big pharma company, bully us like this? And they've not been unreasonable in other products that they have available in the Indian market. It was only about, in fact, we even told them, okay, we will make your vaccine. Let's do a technology transfer. We'll pay you for the technology transfer. Let the vaccines be made in India. They said, no, 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 no. That we'll have that discussion after the pandemic phase of this COVID is over. So when the supply, when our demand reduces, that's when we'll have this conversation. When in fact they already had that kind of model going on with a company in China, Fosun Pharmaceuticals. So, so I don't understand what this obsession with Pfizer was anyway. Yeah.
So now you've lived outside India. I've lived outside India. Never in my whole life have I ever, ever
Yeah.
seen such garbage being written about India
Yeah. Yeah.
and our coverage of
Yeah.
the COVID crisis as I
Right.
did in this entire I don't know, entire COVID
Yeah.
crisis in the international media. I don't know,
Yeah.
where do we start? I mean, do we start from the New York Times, or do we look at the Washington Post, or do we
Yeah.
look at some BBC coverage of our crisis management in
Yeah.
i- so forget about you as a book author.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you as an Indian. How
Yeah.
did you feel when you read that? And you know what annoyed me the most? It was Indian people writing for foreign
Yes.
publications and spewing
Yes.
garbage of the highest order. So what did
Yes.
you what was, if I was to say, what was the single most differentiating factor between Indian media and international media for you?
That international media stayed loyal to their countries and Indian media did not.
Hmm. Yeah, but what do you do make? You remember that funeral pyre photo shot? That was also
Yes.
taken by an Indian, sold to an international media
Yes.
company for money.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
the death porn, as I called it, I remember clearly at that time I was really pissed off, and they were basically,
Yes.
this is, they, I dare them to do this with the morgues getting full in Italy. I dare
Yeah.
them to do this with the morgues being full in New York City.
Yeah.
They would
Yeah.
not do that. They
Yeah.
know better. They know
They
better.
know better. And they wouldn't, even in India. Do you think only Hindu people died? No. All
Mm,
communities, people of all communities died.
absolutely.
So why weren't photos taken in, say, a Kabristan? Why weren't, they should have taken videos of, digging going on then. Why didn't they do it?
Yeah, they could
You know?
have taken a satellite shot of all the kabras being khoda hua and
Yeah.
created
Yeah.
some death porn out of that too, but they won't. It was for the first time in my life, I developed a genuine dislike for them. But that was one part of it. But now let's get into the other part,
No,
which
but
is,
even here, right? Like, so some of them even sat there outside our crematoriums and they filmed bodies being cremated. They interviewed people you know, who were providing, say, wood for the pyres and all of that. So I genuinely still, this question remains unanswered. That number one, why weren't these interviews taking place in Congress ruled states or any opposition ruled states? And second, why weren't these interviews and this live coverage of cremations happening in burial grounds of other religions? So these questions just remain unanswered even today.
yeah, that's true. Nobody knows why it was not there. I mean, I remember one more thing. Oh, dead bodies in the Ganga. By the way, people should
Yeah.
realize in India this has been an old issue, which has
Yeah.
been it has been a continuous issue. I'm not
Yeah.
defending the thing that had happened, but I'm just trying to say that kal paida hue the kya? Did you not know this has happened before too in India?
Yeah,
But
so
now,
you remember that tweet, right, by Gargi Rawat in 2017, I think. So she tweeted a bunch of pictures of bodies in the Ganga in 2017 or 2015, I think. And she said, "What is happening here?" So she captioned those pictures with that. And there was no pandemic then. There were still some bodies in the Ganga. Why? Because Jal Samadhi is a legitimate ritual in those communities who live on the banks of the Ganga. Especially, and what I've been given to understand is that, especially if you're an unmarried person who has died, um, the family will cremate you this way. They will immerse your body in the Ganga as Jal Samadhi, because eventually Hinduism believes in returning your physical body to the elements, right, to the elements of nature. So this is part of that.
the most sensitive issue, and I think here I actually did a discussion about this too. Um, let's talk about the oxygen crisis.
Yeah.
And look, mm, I don't know how to say this, but it was a tough time. The second wave
It
was a
was.
tough time. I
It was.
don't know one person who did not lose a near and
Yeah.
dear one in their extended family.
Yeah.
It was traumatic, to say the least. I lost people due to COVID, and I don't know how else to say it, but and these are my words, not yours. So before somebody attributes it to you, these are my words. I did feel the center did mess up in some way or the other, but still, the way it was spun was not fair. The way it
Yeah.
was spun as if the states had nothing to do with anything. But here's my devil's advocate to you. Now, the problem is the way this government functions, whether we like it or not. Again, this is my view as an outsider looking at how the government. And I'm very open. I'm a BJP voter. People know. Like, I don't hide my voting patterns. I am very open about my voting patterns. I believe if you come on my podcast, um, you should know my voting preferences. That's just the way I am. But and it's not a crime to vote for BJP. But still, what has happened is that when you make a political campaign where everything is about one man, whether we like it or not, it is about Mr. Modi. And I like Mr. Modi, by the way. Then when you have a problem where things go wrong, it's always going to fall on Mr. Modi then too, which is the way it did happen in the case of the oxygen crisis too. So if I was to ask you in that sense, what would you make uh, of the oxygen crisis?
Okay, so the first and foremost point that I want to make is that when the virus mutates, okay, we don't know the effect that it's really going to have on the population until it's already out there spreading in the population. Okay, so this time the Delta needed an unreasonable amount of oxygen that India never in its history have we produced this much medical use oxygen. Okay, so we were really caught off guard in a sense, and we probably any country will again if there's some other requirement that comes up similar to how oxygen was needed during the Delta. Okay, so we had to scale up our oxygen production very very quickly in a very short period of time. And obviously, you know we did struggle for a few weeks. A few weeks were difficult, but we very very quickly came out of that situation. That's my point number one. My second point is that some governments which hoarded oxygen, now we know that the Delhi government hoarded about 4 or 5 times more oxygen that they required because they didn't have accountability of how much was going to the refillers and how much was going to the hospitals and how much was going to the nursing homes. So had these states not hoarded this much extra oxygen, that oxygen would have been available for people demanding it in other states. So, you know, I mean, yes, there was a crisis, but my question stays, would have there been this much of a crisis if there was better oxygen management in some of these states that were hoarding the oxygen?
Yeah, do you remember when the Supreme Court ordered an audit? The moment the Supreme Court ordered an audit, suddenly the Delhi government said the oxygen crisis is over.
Yeah, no, and and he came out and he also said that मेरी इसमें क्या गलती थी, मैंने अपने 2 करोड़ लोगों के बारे में सोचा, तो मतलब आपके लोगों की जानें ज्यादा कीमती है बाकी के लोगों के कंपेयर टू, ये मतलब अभी तो केजरीवाल जी has aspirations to be a national leader. तो मतलब people in Bihar, their lives are dispensable, and people in Delhi and Punjab, their lives are very expensive. Let's hoard the oxygen and let other people in other states die. What kind of politics is this? What kind of responsible politics is this?